Pizza delivery drivers of Reddit, what was the most craziest place you've ever stopped at? Before we start, welcome back to Reddit Stories Hub. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Here, we'll be telling you interesting, thought-provoking stories from Reddit. So, get comfortable and let's jump right in. Story 1. I was 19, delivering pizzas. One trip took me to a seedy hotel. A man in his 60s answered the door wearing a dirty wife beater, and on the bed sat a shirtless young boy, probably about 16 years old. The man said to me, "Why don't you come in? Come on in, don't be shy. Meet Trevor, I bet you two would be really good friends." Needless to say, I grabbed my money and ran away as fast as I could. Story 2. It was outside of town on a dirt road with tall trees. Every house was basically just plywood shacks. There were broken down cars and trash everywhere. The entire neighborhood just reeked of a B-rated horror film. I find the right house and walk up to the door, but it was just a blanket, so I had to yell pizza. They came to the door and grumbled. It was a haggard-looking man wearing boxers and a dirty white tank. Something felt wrong as he handed me a bill that looked washed. I held the $100, with old Ben Franklin's face on it, up to the light and could clearly see Abe Lincoln in the paper. They had ordered around $50 worth of pizza and wanted change. He tried convincing me that he went to the bank, and they gave him that bill. I asked him why the wrong face was on there, and he said that's how they do it. I said hell no and drove away as fast as I could. We stopped taking orders that don't have street roads. Story 3. I didn't end up delivering the pizza, but the address was an abandoned house. It was around dusk, and the house was so obviously uninhabited, I could see trees growing through the windows and the backside of the house was crumbling so badly I could see to the backyard from the street. The instructions were to come around back. I double-checked the address after locking my doors, called the customer a couple of times, called the store and told them what was up and why I wasn't delivering the pizza and headed out. I mean seriously, who would have been dumb enough to go to the back of that house? Story 4. I once delivered pizza to a guy living under his porch, if that counts. I drove up to the house. It's pitch black, no lights on. I look at the ticket and it says, "Use back door." I go up the steps and no lights were on. Nothing. Then I hear a voice from below me say, "Hey, down here." I look under the porch, and there's a small door leading into what looked like a makeshift apartment. I had to actually crouch to get to it, gave the guy the pizza and bounced the F out of there. Story 5. I worked at Domino's, and we had to blacklist a guy because he was obsessed with me. He would come in and ask if I was there. If I wasn't working that day, he would just show up the next. If I was on a delivery, he'd wait around in the store for me. He would tell me that he loved me and ask me out on dates. He was very bad on heroin and made it obvious. The last time I delivered to his house, he ordered about $40 worth of food and drinks, and kept trying to hand me $100 even though I told him numerous times I didn't have the change. He apparently stole his grandma's cell phone and wouldn't give it back, and him and his cousin were screaming at each other the whole time I'm waiting to get the smaller bills he kept telling me he had. He had nothing smaller than a $100 and he kept arguing with me because he changed his mind and just wanted one pizza and a drink, and I told him I couldn't do that. Story 6. So, while I was in undergrad, I worked as a pizza delivery driver. I had a delivery to a dodgy part of town with a delicious pie. When I got within a couple miles of the residence, a local sheriff's deputy got in front of me. We made all the same turns. Then as we got closer, another got in front of him and one behind me. I started freaking out a bit as I'd been smoking some weed but carried on. Finally, we all get to the same residence, which is totally surrounded by police in riot gear, guns drawn, all that shit. I get out with my pizza and discover the house I'm supposed to deliver to is the one with SWAT out in front. One of the officers waves me off and says, "He's not gonna need that today," and they proceed to breach the door, to which I return to the car with a free pizza and get the hell out of there. They were added to our do not deliver list, but I don't think we ever heard from them again. Story 7. One night I had a delivery to a pretty rural area. A lot of my deliveries are to rural areas, so no big deal. But tonight, it's drizzling and especially dark, so I'm having trouble finding the address of the house I'm looking for. So, I roll down the passenger window and use my flashlight, pointing it at mailboxes/trees/posts/anything that somebody might have their address on at the end of their driveway. So, I'm driving along at like 5 miles an hour pointing at my flashlight when the beam catches a guy wearing a black hoodie at the end of an obviously long gravel road staring directly at me. More of a glare at me, really. But whatever, could just be on the phone or something. Then it gets weirder. I finally found the address I'm looking for and pull into the drive and hop out of the car. That's when I get the sinking feeling. no cars, no house light, boarded up windows. If you've ever been a delivery person, you know that this is the time to GTFO of there because you're about to get robbed. Right as I'm about to jump in, throw the car into reverse and nope the F out of there, I see a man walking across the empty field adjacent to the property towards me. Now I'm a pretty burly, bearded dude, so I don't worry a whole lot about deliveries, but this scared the shit out of me. When he gets closer, I see him very obviously tucking something into his waistband, what I can only assume was a gun. He then says in a thick, menacing southern accent, "I thought you were the law," I guess because of how I was scanning the addresses. I meekly point to my car topper and the pizza in my hand, and he says in the nicest voice you've ever heard, "Oh, great, thank you so much, have a great night," pays me, and proceeds to walk back through the open field, in the direction of no buildings, in the rain, with his pizza. For the rest of my shift, I couldn't stop whispering, "What the F? Strangest thing that's ever happened to me." Story 8. GPS led me to my city's hospital. After getting directions from a lot of employees, I finally found the room. I'll admit now, I really should have paid more attention to the signs but was in rush and didn't bother. Luckily there was a nurse already in this lady's room. I was just going to walk in and drop food off when the nurse started shaking her hands and rushed to me. "No, no, no, you can't come in here. This is isolation." "Oh, I'm sorry, she ordered a delivery." She went back into the room and asked the lady if she had ordered the delivery, and I heard the lady say yes. I overheard the nurse tell her, "You should have told me." The nurse comes back to me to grab food, and tells me if I had walked in the room I was not be let back out or something along those lines. Threw me for a loop. Story 9. A good friend of mine delivered pizzas in college, and he told me about a time when he left a guy's house after a delivery and was swarmed by cops a few blocks away. After an intense interrogation and proving he was solely a pizza delivery guy, they let him know that the house he had just delivered to was under surveillance because the guy was believed to be a drug kingpin in Knoxville. Story 10. I drove to the customer's house and saw that a guy was being handcuffed by the police in the front yard. I had no idea what to do, so I drove around a neighboring block a few times. When I came back, the police and handcuffed guy were gone. I didn't know if he was the customer or not, so I just walked up to the door and knocked. An old couple answered and took the pizza and paid and didn't say anything about the arrest that happened on their lawn. It was in a city with an extremely low crime rate as well, so it was very strange for a 17-year-old me. Story 11. Drove for Domino's in college and had to deliver to a house in a bad part of town. There were no lights on at all outside and the grass looked like it hadn't been cut in months. I have to use my phone flashlight to find my way to the door. I knock and this elderly woman answers wearing nothing but an oversized t-shirt. She had one eye that was good and one that was completely glazed over. She never said a word and kept eye contact with me the entire time that she fumbled through her wallet to give me exact change. Ugh. Meanwhile inside there is a very large man and a little kid. They were both only wearing boxers, and the kid kept trying to run up to help the woman with the sodas and pizza, and the guy kept yelling to sit his ass down. All the while this woman is silent and staring into my soul. I wish I could say it was a one-time deal, but no. I delivered there a few more times after that and it was the exact same drill every time. Just felt like something from the Twilight Zone. Story 12. I'm a girl. I was a delivery driver and was working a morning shift. Around 10:30 a.m. I got a delivery to an apartment. Everything seemed legit since it's daytime and there are lots of people close by. I knocked on the door and after 30 seconds or so the door opened a few inches and the guy was behind the door, so I only saw his face. Still didn't think it was weird because people do that when they're trying to restrain a dog. He asked me to put the pizza on the stove behind him, and he moved back so I could see it was right behind him. I hesitated a second and decided not to do it, told him I can't enter homes, but I don't mind waiting until he's ready to take the pizza. He asked again, said it's right there, so I gave the same answer, really apologetic, but something wasn't feeling right. I realized later it was how quiet it was, didn't sound like there was an excited dog back there. So, he opened the door wide open and was completely naked. And this guy was at least 60 years old and like 6 feet tall. I tried to hand him the pizza and gave him the total, averting my eyes the whole time. He wouldn't give me the money. He kept asking me to repeat the total and moved into my line of vision. I just took a step back and looked straight up. Eventually he gave me $25 and I got the F out. Told everyone at the store, and for an $8 tip and a chance to deck the guy all the boys that worked there hoped he would order again. The next day he did. When the driver got back, he said he had to wait at least 2 minutes, and when the guy answered, he was only wearing sweatpants, so he was sure he would do it again to a girl driver, so the guy got blacklisted. Story 13. I made a delivery to a motel that was known for drug dealers/users staying there. After I got there, the guy acts like his order is wrong and gets me to call my boss because he was hoping to just get the order for free. While on the phone with my boss, she told me not to worry about getting the money from him and to just get out of there ASAP, because she was worried about me. I told her I would be fine, and she didn't need to worry, and I would see if I could get them to pay. So, after talking to them for about 5 minutes, I actually get them to buy the food they ordered and give me a tip. Also, the guy wanted me to sell meth for him, which I politely declined. The whole time I was talking to them, my boss was blowing up my phone trying to get me to get away from them. It does mean a lot that she cared enough to do that. Story 14. I delivered pizza in a slum during high school. There was a lot of screwed up shit, but the ones that really bothered me were delivering to junkies that had multiple young children just living in filth. There was one particular junkie who was always barely conscious and had like 4 kids living in squalor and eating probably nothing but pizza and soda every day. Also, these junkies always had some shithead enabler, usually their parents, ordering the food for them, so it was 50-50 on whether or no they even answered the door or were otherwise aware of the delivery coming. Story 15. Delivered pizza for a while in high school and college. Never anything too sketchy. Used to deliver all the time to a level 3 sex offender. I never felt too threatened as an 18-year-old, but the guy gave me the absolute creep. He lived in a tiny condo with linoleum floors and cheap furniture, like he had the same everything since the 70s. He would have me bring the pizza in and close the door behind me. There were a few seconds I'd be putting the pizza down with my back to him. It sounds rather mundane typing it out, but I can't really think of another time being around another person and being so absolutely creeped out. I never knew the exact details of his crimes, but the implication was kids. It sounds wrong to say, but I feel like even if I wasn't told before the first delivery, I still would have come back to the shop and said that he probably has a kid's head in his freezer. Story 16. Delivered pizza for about 2 months. I got an address I have never even heard of. It was beyond town and more up a hill. Never been here and my GPS ain't making sense. House on the right, but all I see is a mailbox and big tree. I had to turn my car sideways of the road to a high beam. What was behind the tree? I see a small house. Pretty sure it was a 1-bedroom. Thought to myself, carrying too large, why would a tree be in front of the house? Anyways, I knocked on the door and a nice blonde lady opened it. Told her I have her pizza. She told me to put the 2 pizzas on a small counter while she gets change. It was like a small table counter where you can put your keys when you walk in the house. I thought to myself it was only 3 feet away, max, plus the door is wide open. So, as I came in, I put the 2 large pizzas on the counter. As I put the pizza on the counter, I saw the lady looking in her purse for change. Nothing to it as I watch her get money. Suddenly the door slams behind me. A child, maybe around 2 or 3 years old, was in front of the door. All I remember was the back of my hair stood up as this little boy was looking at me with an eye patch. I can remember my hair standing up, but my butt cheek was tightening, like pulsing, then touched my shoulder and said he had pink eye. Okay, pat the kid in the head and left. As I was leaving, my car scraped the sidewalk, but I got a $6 tip. Story 17. I delivered 4 large pizzas to an apartment complex. The person that ordered gave us the door code so we could just enter the building. I had never delivered to this address before, so I just walked up to the door and knocked as per usual. I just heard a muffled voice from inside the apartment say, "Come in, the door's unlocked." Normally I would never go into someone's house, but it sounded like an old lady, so I entered. What I found inside was equal parts shocking and sad. The woman was lying back in a recliner in the living room. It looked as though her body had fused with the fabric due to not moving for days at a time. If it wasn't apparent to me by the piles of empty soda bottles, takeout containers, and pizza boxes that this woman was probably unable to get out of her recliner, the acrid smell that hit your face as you entered would have made it obvious. She had me place the boxes of pizza on the armrest of the recliner. She also said that she had never seen me before, and it was usually one of the other drivers that delivered her food. I was new to that store, so I had no idea what to expect there. She signed the card receipt, and before I left, I asked if there was anything else I could do to help, and she said that she dropped her phone after she made the call and asked if I could get it for her. I picked it up out of some nearby trash and gave it to her. As I left, I understood why she gave us her door code, because there was no way she was getting up to buzz me in. Story 18. Female driver here. We delivered until 3 a.m. in my college town. Had a delivery off campus in the part of the neighborhood that didn't have many streetlights. It was 2 a.m. I get to the door and it's answered by these two huge guys. I handed them the receipt and asked them to sign it. While one guy is singing, the other is creepily hitting on me, telling me my smile is cute, wasn't smiling, that I looked hot, asking me for my number. I said no to giving out my number and he said, "Ah, that's alright. I know where you work." I'm super creeped out, but I deal because I need this freaking receipt. He asks if I'm single. I said sorry, I'm taken. The other guy, still signing the receipt, is like, "Man, I don't give 2F if you got a boyfriend or not." He then is holding my receipt hostage, and they both step out of the doorway and start looking up and down the street for people that might be around. Thank God there was a group of 3 people slightly down the street. It was seriously giving me the creeps, and I was so sure I was about to get nabbed and raped that I sprinted to my car and took off. They started chasing me, but I caught them off guard and the head start was enough. I never delivered there again. I still remember that address to this day, although I don't deliver or even live in that town anymore. Story 19. I used to drive for Papa John's. I have several stories. So, one day I ended up with this delivery on the evening shift, and it was after the dinner rush as far as I can recall. So, things were quieter, and not as many people were out and about or on the road. The customer lived kind of deep in this rundown neighborhood full of single-story houses, and when I arrived literally every single light on the house was off. I walked up to the door, figuring that I might as well ring the bell since they ordered it. After all, maybe they were waiting on it anyway, right? Ring. Nothing. I waited a bit. Ring. Nothing. At this point I figure they aren't there or are asleep. So, I walked away from the door and was about to call my boss to relay that I might have to bring the pizza back, when almost silently the front door opens up. It's literally so dark inside it's like a scene from a horror movie where you can't see anything at all. 2 pale, stringy-looking guys come out of the darkness without saying much of anything and pay me in cash for the pizza, then take it and quietly move back into the dark without ever turning on the lights. I left pretty quickly as it freaked me out. Was I in any danger? I doubt it, but those guys were really creepy. Story 20. I live in a backwoods area of the Pacific Northwest. My friend who took this call tells me the lady sounded weird. Getting to this house is going through a maze of dense forest and dirt road. As I get to the house, I see it's got a 15-foot fence topped with barbed wire. I ring a buzzer, get let in, and am greeted by a tall bald dude wearing black sweatpants, black hoodie. He opens the door wide. I see 15 to 20 people all wearing gray or black sweatpants and hoodies, sitting in front of a TV screen facing away from me. Guy tells me he is going to get mother. Old lady comes and pays me. I got back in my rig with a $20 tip. That was my run-in with a cult. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.